the granddaddy of them all, the big dance, the showcase of the immortals.
Your opinion on the greatest WrestleMania match is most definitely going to differ depending on the age you started watching wrestling in and the era you started watching wrestling in. From the classic to the gimmick and everything in between.
40 years of great wrestling, you have to do something memorable in order to be on a list like this, or be a child that helps Braun Strowman win the WWE tag titles. Either way.
By the way, hope you like Shawn Michaels. There's a reason why he's Mr. WrestleMania. Don't be afraid to tell me your favorite WrestleMania match in the comments down below. But until then, this is Extreme League Wrestling, and here are our top 10 WrestleMania matches.
WrestleMania 20, Eddie Guerrero vs. Kurt Angle for the WWE title.
This battle of what it truly means to be a hero is really the bread and butter to many great WrestleMania matches. And I can think of no two others who are juxtaposed so greatly than the lying, cheating, stealing Latino Heat himself, Eddie Guerrero, and the Olympic hero, Kurt Angle.
Eddie's lovable, charming, anti-hero ways went strictly against what the Olympic gold medalists thought the WWE champion should be. Guerrero had battled his demons and gotten to the point where he was dismissed from the company after his addictions had gotten the better of him.
Given Eddie's real-life resiliency, it's not hard to see why the man was so widely regarded both in and out of the ring.
Angle is first caught off guard by Eddie's ground game, which is no surprise if you're a fan of the WCW Cruiserweight division. Kurt begins to work on the man's midsection here in order to neutralize the frog splash later on in the match. Kurt Angle, for his part in this match, shows why he is truly one of one.
With Eddie's foot hurt, he's more prone to the ankle lock more than ever. So, loosening his bootstraps, he's able to get out of the hold, roll up Kurt Angle, and put his feet on the ropes for the win here. 3 words to personify the man: lie, cheat, and steal. And we miss him every day.
Shawn Michaels vs. Ric Flair, WrestleMania 24.
As Ric Flair was winding down his career, he made a promise to himself and the rest of the WWE that with his next loss, he would hang up the boots and retire. With WrestleMania 24 quickly approaching, he thought of no one better to face than Mr. WrestleMania himself, Shawn Michaels.
Shawn, being a longtime fan of the Nature Boy, declined, being that he didn't want to be the one to end Ric Flair's career. Oh, Hickenbottom, you know not yet, you sweet summer child. So, after a match that was frankly too good for a man of Ric Flair's age to have, you see Shawn getting ready to finish off his idol with one last sweet chin music. He hesitates though, stopping the band from being fully tuned. Ric Flair, battered and beaten, stands across the ring from Michaels and begs for Shawn to finish him off.
But right before this, we got the famous line, "I'm sorry, I love you." With the 3 count, the Heartbreak Kid quickly dispatched from the ring, leaving the Nature Boy in the spotlight one final time to soak in the applause from the WWE Universe. And then Ric Flair never wrestled a match again.
Mick Foley vs. Edge, WrestleMania 23.
You see, my pro wrestling fandom didn't begin with an episode of Monday Night Raw, Friday Night SmackDown, a DVD, or even a pay-per-view. You see, for me, it began in a hotel room in Tennessee. As I waited for my mother to get ready for our next family outing, I watched a documentary to pass the time. This documentary on A&E was of Mrs. Foley's baby boy, and I was quickly enamored with his work and the world of wrestling in general.
His work in Japan, ECW, and that Hell in a Cell match had my infatuation from the jump in the world of graps, and it wasn't going to stop anytime soon. Being that I wasn't allowed to watch WWE, I mainly watched highlights from Monday Night Raw on the cut-down special that would air on the USA Network around 5 a.m. on Saturday mornings.
If Foley was my first wrestling love, Edge was my first wrestling loathe. I hated the man and his cheating ways, and everything he did with the La Familia faction. It made my middle school blood boil.
Some years had passed and I finally got to watch some of the Hardcore Legends mainstay matches at a family member's house who owned the Mick Foley DVD set. The match itself is infamous for a variety of reasons. Weapons and unprotected headshots come right out of the gate. Between the barbed wire bat, each set of stairs having a loot box of pain underneath, and the barbed wire Mr. Sacco, Edge and Foley didn't skip a beat, which is insane to think about given the abuse Mick has seen over the years.
The finish sees the flaming table spot happen to pure perfection. Foley and Edge have both had similar successes within their careers, and you can even find Adam Copeland today carrying on the flaming table shenanigans.
Stone Cold Steve Austin vs. Bret Hart, WrestleMania 13.
WrestleMania 13 might be one of the biggest one-match show of shows ever for the company, but for what this match did for WWF and frankly the wrestling world in general, it was most definitely worth it. It's definitely not given the moniker of that double turn match for frivolous reasons. Austin, in the heat of Hart's domain, takes this fight quickly to the outside, involving weapons from the get-go, trying to bring the fight to Hart before he can bring the fight to Austin.
Bret starts going after Stone Cold's leg, not only for the sharpshooter to become more effective, but for Austin to not be able to use his limited submission game. As time goes on, Bret gets more violent and angry with his attacks, using everything from a sharpshooter against the ring post to hitting the Texas Rattlesnake over the head with the ring bell. As Austin starts playing up to the crowd, you can feel the change in the air. Stone Cold, beaten and bloodied, his leg done from Bret's attacks with the chair, will not give up and chooses to pass out instead. And the post-match attack signs, seals, and delivers the new heel Hitman.
As Austin fought against referees trying to make it to the back on his own, his screaming bloody face would do so much for the WWF, and frankly, the entire world of wrestling, ushering in a new era that would be the standard bearer to what the product is deserving of today.
Kofi Kingston versus Daniel Bryan, WrestleMania 35.
Daniel Bryan found himself on the other side of things as WrestleMania 35 approached. Being dubbed the new Daniel Bryan, he was like a cartoonish, egotistical Captain Planet.
Kofi Kingston had been a mainstay on the WWE roster for over a decade at this point, winning tag and mid-card gold along the way, but never truly got to the top. The fans truly started to get behind the New Day member, as he had to replace his sadly injured Mustafa Ali at that year's Elimination Chamber, a great showing for Kofi, just barely losing out. But this wouldn't be the end of his journey.
With Vince-era WWE finally learning from 5 years prior and going with the hot hand, the chairman and Daniel Bryan put barrier over barrier for Kofi in order to make sure he couldn't make it to WrestleMania.
The New Day's other members, Xavier Woods and Big E, competed in a tag team gauntlet in order to punch their brother's ticket to WrestleMania, just barely inching out, even sharing a heartfelt moment with their longtime rivals, the Usos, who forfeited out of respect. By the way, I miss Big E, and I hope you're recovering well. This match is a delicate dance of Kofi's high-flying kicks to Bryan's ground game, with moves like the Trouble in Paradise and SOS becoming countered with his label lock and Boston Crab.
As someone who has bruised their ribs, these yes kicks to the midsection are so hard to watch. But Kofi is finally able to beat Bryan in his own game, get out of his various submissions, and deliver him one more SOS to pick up the win. While the build might have been a little bit forced, and the constant cutting back and forth between people watching the match and the actual match itself being a little bit jarring, it was still beautiful to see this moment, to see all three members of the New Day shedding tears in the middle of the ring as their brother finally made it to the mountaintop, his children coming into the ring holding up the belt with their father. It made the past 11 years feel so much worth it. And that's what WrestleMania really is for, right? And dang, who doesn't like a nice cheesy moment at the show of shows?
The Undertaker versus CM Punk, WrestleMania 29.
At the time of recording, this match is most infamous for being CM Punk's last WrestleMania match to this date. And well, it's not hard to see why the guy walked out of the company. He was champion for 400 plus days, which at the time was unheard of, and he was just brushed aside for Cena Rock 2 Electric Boogaloo.
This match shows it, with Punk and Taker working it with so much gusto and heat, with a feud based around the late Paul Bearer, and Punk and Heyman playing keep away with his ashes against the dead man. Punk's bitch slap to start things off, followed by a vengeful Taker stalking the straight edge superstar, followed by Punk hitting a bunch of vintage Undertaker moves, shows that this match was just as much mental as it was physical. The iconic Undertaker pop-up spot while he's in the Anaconda Vice was followed by a flawless GTS to Tombstone sequence.
Punk would even take a count-out win here, just to be sure that he'd get under the Undertaker's skin even more. Even though the dead man did pick up the win here, this is probably one of his best in-ring matches outside of a couple of others on this list.
Macho Man Randy Savage versus Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, WrestleMania 3.
This era is most definitely not known for the best work rate. It was more so about playing the hits, popping the crowd, and definitely not the same work style we see now where you get a 60-minute technical masterpiece on every show. Honestly though, without this match laying the foundation that it does, I personally think the in-ring product would look very different.
The Dragon and Macho Man were meticulous when preparing for this bout. In an A&E biopic on the late Savage, Steamboat even noted that they wrote out a over 100-step mark-for-mark pacing and quizzed each other leading up to their meeting at the Silverdome. The entrances, by the way, here are great. The ring wagon adds a certain level of class to the grandiosity of the event, a move that I wish they would bring back.
This really is the blueprint to any top-tier match, and it's worked tighter than me in a size 30 pair of skinny jeans. And really, it makes the simplest things feel super impactful. Steamboat's arm drag, Macho Man's double axe handle, everything just feels so purposeful and impactful.
It's amazing that they can remember beat for beat how the match is supposed to go when I forget what I'm looking for when I walk into another room in my house. Randy even doing something as simple as using his knees to kick out of a pen so he can conserve more energy is a 10,000 IQ move.
And the finish is truly the cherry on top of the cake. As Macho Man is coming down from the top rope with a ring bell, he misses, goes up for a scoop slam, and then Steamboat rolls him up for the win. This match is a classic for a reason, and it ages like fine wine, much like the Dragon himself.
Shawn Michaels versus The Undertaker, WrestleMania 25 and 26. Look, I couldn't pick between the two, and since it's my list, they can both share a spot. Okay, cool, let's move on.
Much like children to a family, the parents will never say that they have a favorite, but let's be real, everyone does. And 25 has gotten its flowers for good reason. The dark versus light aesthetic, Taker's infamous dive to the outside, and that final sequence of a moonsault into a jumping tombstone piledriver. It's known as one of the greatest WrestleMania matches for a damn good reason. While their rematch at 26 doesn't get the same flowers as 25, I still think it has a lot of great qualities that puts it on par with its predecessor.
HBK has always been a character that has, for the most part, been on top at the end of the day. Once he returned after losing his smile, in my opinion, he became an even better performer. At this point, he had done everything, besides one. The Dead Man and the Showstopper were always wrestlers that worked super well together and were one of those financial feuds you want as a booker. With Taker rejecting his offer for a rematch, this is the one time Shawn Michaels truly really got rejected since his rise as a single star. His elimination from that year's Royal Rumble was something of beauty, as Batista just barely eliminated Michaels by his fingertips, just barely hanging on as he hit the floor.
Losing his mind, attacking referees, and costing The Undertaker the World Heavyweight title at Elimination Chamber. The streak versus the career was being built as a classic, all to a wonderful video package, might I add, to a down-tempo version of Kate Bush's Running Up That Hill. Being that both men had faced off against each other for the better part of 3 decades, they had an answer for everything the other one had, from sweet chin music into Last Ride and Moonsault into Tombstone. It was like they could read each other's minds.
While the Attitude Era had plenty of PG-13 action, this was most definitely a major part of why they were so successful during that time. And that ending is what you would call nowadays cinema. As The Undertaker begs for Shawn Michaels to stay down, Mr. WrestleMania gets up in one last act of defiance and slaps Taker across the face. Taker then picks him up with as much gusto as he can muster, delivering one final tombstone, and that is the end of Shawn Michaels' career.
An ending that had the same grandiosity as the showstopper himself. Shawn Michaels went out on the highest note he could, and then he never wrestled again.
Shawn Michaels versus Kurt Angle, WrestleMania 21.
Dream matches sometimes don't really have to be that complicated. You take 2 of the greatest that you currently have on your roster, let them do their thing on the mic, let them do their thing in the ring, and just let the magic happen. And I can think of no 2 other men on the WWE roster in the 2000s who personified this more than Shawn Michaels and Kurt Angle.
Shawn Michaels, Mr. WrestleMania, the showstopper, the holder of every major title within the company and one of the greatest of all time. Kurt Angle, a natural in the ring, multiple-time world champion. And by the way, if you want to know a little fun fact about Kurt Angle that many people don't know, he won a gold medal with a broken freaking neck. They were 2 different sides of the same coin, with one a serious technician and the other one being the human embodiment of sports entertainment. Shawn actually starts taking Angle's game right to him with some solid mat wrestling, this slowly building frustration in the gold medalist. This leaves an opening for HBK to get the better of him.
Things start to turn around for Kurt as he slams Shawn Michaels into the ring post. And now it's time for Kurt to beat Shawn at his own game. And truly, a winner was just going to be decided from who made the first mental mistake.
The final stretch sees HBK trying to play the game of hitting the sweet chin music without getting caught in the ankle lock, but once Kurt has it locked in, it's like Shawn's ankle is trapped in a bear trap with the strength of a junkyard dog, forcing Mr. WrestleMania to tap, declaring Kurt Angle the winner.
As someone who's never taken a bump in his life, sometimes I feel a bit underqualified to talk about matches, but when the greatness is just this clear, it's hard not to call it a masterpiece.
And our number 1 WrestleMania match, Randy Orton versus Batista versus Daniel Bryan, WrestleMania 30.
With this Mania taking place in my home state, and with one of my favorite wrestlers of all time in it, it's hard not to top the list. And with the butterfly effect of CM Punk leaving the company leading us to this point, It was almost a perfect storm of sorts.
Bryan getting worked over by Triple H in the opener, injuring his shoulder, set Bryan up to be the babiest of baby faces, facing off against The Authority, Randy Orton, and Bautista. Every time the Viper and the Animal thought that they had dispatched the leader of the Yes Movement, Bryan would come back with yes kicks and running knees, with a spirit of 75,000 within the Superdome, like he was Goku on some Spirit Bomb type beat. It's truly amazing to see Danielson break through to this main event scene, given that this is the start of the Vince WWE Fuck What You Want era. The combo RKO Batista Bomb through the announce table seems to be the end for Bryan, as Randy and Big Dave take turns picking over the bones, fighting over who will get to pin him in the end. The disorganization leaves just enough room for Bryan to take out Orton and to lock into the bell lock on Batista for the win.
The Miracle on Bourbon Street is such a core memory for myself and so many others. And really, it's such a beautiful moment at the end of the day. Us fans finally got what we wanted. Daniel Bryan finally got his flowers. And as you watch, we see Connor the Crusher sitting there with his parents in the front row, getting to watch his hero raise the championship belts in a sea of confetti at the end of the grandest stage of them all. And I can think of nothing better to personify WrestleMania than that moment. Sorry, my eyes are doing that thing where they leak water. And that is our list for the top 10 WrestleMania matches of all time. What is your favorite WrestleMania match? Don't be afraid to tell us in the comments down below. Make sure to hit that like button if you enjoyed watching, and subscribe if you want more. This has been Extreme League Wrestling, and we'll catch you next time.